All right. Hey, everyone. I'm here today with Debra Haym. Hey, Debra.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you
Good.
for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So, Deborah's in Florida, Delray Beach, right?
Delray Beach, exactly.
Cool. And you're a cool banker.
I am, yes, Coldwell Banker.
So, I wanted to bring you on today because we had a podcast about who's better at sales, introverts or extroverts. And you're an introvert, right? Do you identify as that?
Uh, I kind of, I would consider myself a bit of both.
Okay.
So
You're
yeah,
cool.
I'm an extroverted introvert.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
That's okay. What does that mean?
I don't know. It basically means I have traits of both.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. I feel like most people though, like we all have traits of both, right? Like I'm like a pretty extreme extrovert, but there is times that like I need to like shut everything down and like not talk to anybody and like not whatever, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But we were arguing and my thought was like extroverts are better at sales just because it's like more natural and easier for us. But you had some really good points on like kind of like a guide to selling if you're an introvert. So let's hear some of your tactics.
Sure. So I was thinking about this a lot. Because first of all, I think that what makes an introvert great at sales is the persistence that sometimes an extrovert loses.
Okay.
Because it comes quite easily to most extroverted people, or doesn't, they're a bit more thick skinned perhaps, or more comfortable with the idea of putting themselves out there. A lot of times an introvert will think a bit more systematically to their
Right.
approach and stick to it a bit more.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking about kind of, the extroverts, the obvious thought process and the answer. And I was talking to quite a few realtors that I would consider much more introverted than someone would think of as the, bog standard,
Like the
salesperson.
quintessential sales
Exactly.
realtor. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're quite a few of them are mentors to me, and people that I think of as people, their book of business is something I would aspire to. So it's really been a question of mine of, if I'm, if I'm not going about these extroverted ways, does that mean I'm doomed to failure or what have you? So, and what I've kind of came to the conclusion is absolutely not. I think that when you first start in sales and real estate, everyone's going to say to you, the easy way to do it is cold calling, door knocking, and constantly talking to strangers.
Right. Right.
Which, if you're introverted, is incredibly terrifying.
Yes.
And I think it's a very overwhelming thing. And I think immediately turns quite a few people that are maybe a bit of the shyer nature off. And I
Mhm.
just think that that's not necessarily the best or only way. Now, everyone's always going to tell you that you're going to be the best salesperson if you find what works for you and you do that
Correct.
continuously. And
Right.
absolutely. But obviously let's not lie. Cold calling, door knocking, it works. But if you're not someone who enjoys it, it's
It's not
painful.
going to work and
It's
you're going to sound insane or awkward. That's
Or
not
I
gonna,
mean, I talked to someone the other day who was cold calling me, and I honestly wasn't sure it wasn't a recording.
oh, right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
exactly, it wasn't work. So I guess the question is, if that's not for you, you're immediately taught that's what you have to do. So if that's not for you, how do you make money?
Right.
So, what I found really works as an introvert is this whole idea of, what do you do well? Which is, are you a yogi? Are you a chef? Are you a reader? And really just using your circle of influence very systematically.
Okay.
And I've met quite a few people that do that and are millionaires in real estate.
Yes.
They go play golf every day and they just talk to people,
Right.
and that works for them. They
Because they can
do.
talk about the things that they like. You're not trying to make up conversation. Is that
Yeah,
what?
and you're not just talking about your business. You
Right.
can talk about it in line with things that they already know you're good at or think of you at, and you're comfortable.
Right.
And I think being comfortable is really the thing. And not everyone wants a very salesy salesperson.
Right. Exactly.
So it kind of gives you that different appeal.
Yeah.
So to me, it's really is an introverted person can do very well if they very systematically and very routinely attack their sphere of influence, their friend, who is the sphere? Friends of their friends, people they know that work in places where if you're not an extrovert, maybe they have a friend who's an extrovert who meets everybody,
Right.
that's a member of a beach club or best would be a divorce lawyer's office
Oh,
because they're always buying and selling, I
right.
mean, these are
Exactly.
true. Concierges, masseuses, places where people just start talking,
Yeah.
and really treating those people well and getting them to be your champion for you and do the extroverted work.
Right.
Um,
Just like
or do,
showing up. Like I like how, I mean, you're saying, okay, what are you good at? What do you normally do? Like when you're not doing your job? What are your fun activities?
yeah,
And
exactly.
then just like doing those more often. I mean, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and just thinking to yourself, how do I, let these people know what I do?
Yeah.
And perhaps in just a softer way, just everyone you talk to. By the
Yeah.
way, do you know anyone who's getting married, moving? It doesn't even have to say, do you know anyone buying or selling?
Right.
Because everyone knows if you're a realtor that
Yeah.
that's what you want to know. I
Right.
mean, it's not that hard to kind of piece
But
the two together.
it could even be like if like let's say you like reading. So instead of reading by yourself, you could
Exactly,
like
a
join
book
a
club.
book club or something like that. And then the book club is often like maybe it moves around to different people's neighborhoods and it's
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, did you see that your neighbor's house sold or whatever? You could just like add value in that sort of way too.
Exactly. And it just feels a lot more soft and comfortable.
Hmm.
So I really do think it's about doing what you do all the time. Like, for example, someone told me about how someone who loves yoga, they just love
Yeah.
yoga. So they advertised a free yoga class and hired like a affordable instructor to teach it. And started getting people talking and like they had all this like yoga stuff out. And then on the side was like a brochure
Yeah.
and
Right.
saying what they did and like, kind of had like a sponsored by kind
Right.
of
Right.
feel to it. So there's lots of different ways, and you don't even have to do that routine. You could just go to your gym every week and try to get people's attention.
Right.
And also partnering up with people, I think is a good way to do it. Because, for example, let's say you want to actually do door knocking.
Hmm.
You don't have to do that alone. Maybe, on your last two deals, you choose a friend who does the same kind of network or price point you do, and you do it together. And every now and again, you split a deal
Right.
if you get
Right.
something. And then you don't feel, because real estate can be quite lonely for
I
as
know that's
outgoing it
like
is.
something they don't really teach us like in real estate school about how lonely it is. And you wouldn't really think that it is, right? Because you're interacting with people all the time, but
But you
it's
have no colleagues. Not
right.
really.
Not
It's
really.
not like you go into an office. Everyone's got their own business. Some
Yeah.
people will chat, some people don't, but none of you are working on really the exact same thing ever. Everything
Right.
is unique.
Yes.
And so you can't really be like, oh, when you were filling that out, what did you do? Like, yeah, some of it you can, but no two of you are sitting really in the same meeting at the same time. It's just much more isolated than a
Yeah.
normal corporate job,
That's
which is
crazy.
fun and keeps it exciting, but it kind of
It's not
you don't
talked
have that
about.
rapport.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't think I realized that going in. So it is nice every now and again to just partner with someone, to have someone you're bouncing, even if you don't want to be a part of a team, just
Yeah.
every now and again having some activities that you're like, you know what, I'm gonna do door knocking. You had a deal in this neighborhood, I had a deal in this neighborhood, they're basically the same price point. Why don't we do it together?
Right.
And we'll do both neighborhoods and we split whatever comes out of it. Or if it's for my neighborhood, it's 60-40. And if it's, what I mean, and
Yeah. Or
yours, it's
whatever
the
it is.
opposite. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever you work out, as long as it's someone you feel you can work with and that you can do it in a fair way.
Yeah, I've also found that when coaching and training agents, it feels like you have to get all of these leads and all of these people. But when we really break it down to like their actual goals, like I'm working with an introvert right now, actually, and we're looking at it, and she sells about 10 houses a year. And she's like, I really want to sell like 24. And we implemented like some of the strategies. So we were talking about her sphere and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
like we realized she used to be a preschool teacher, and at that preschool, and she does volunteer too, but she volunteers at like another school. So it's like at that school there was about 30 teachers and she knew them already, right? Because that's where she worked and she was friends. I was like, well, if you're going to volunteer at a school, you should volunteer at that school, because when you
Yeah.
add those 30 people and you add your past clients, the ones that you like.
And the three people, each of those 30 people know if they even start talking to you.
Exactly. And you will have enough people, and that's all you have to talk to get your deals. So it's
And most
not
of
as
mine
many.
are referrals. And I would say I
Yes.
prefer that much more because, first of all, I'm getting referrals from people I already like.
Right.
I've already worked with, I have a sense of most people are
Yes.
friends with people somewhat similar, at least in
Yes.
some values.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, hey, this is my friend. This is what you need to kind of look out for them.
No.
But they're already getting, yeah, you know what I mean? They're already getting a pretty decent, you're getting recommended to them. So they're going to
Yes.
be open. It's very warm. They're much
Right.
more likely to use you. And most likely if they're being referred, they're going to be straight with you if you know what their time frame is. It's just so much easier. And I find that the number of contacts that you have to have with them between that and close is like a
It's
quarter.
not as much. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like one or two versus like 10 or 12.
Right.
And if it's a complete, you know, like a FISBO or like a canceled order, you could be calling them for years before you get a deal.
But I also think too, like from an introvert's point of view, it's like, okay, I believe, and I don't know if this is true, but it seems to me that most agents are extroverts. So if the extroverts are the ones that are more out there, then what about all the buyers and sellers that are more introverted? They're going to have problems with us, right? And so it's like it's up
Well,
to you.
exactly. I mean, I don't want to be the eighth person to call someone when I know they're getting
Right.
called 8 times. Like that makes me like, I feel uncomfortable just knowing that. You know, it
Yeah.
as someone like it makes me, you know what I mean, makes me not want to pick up that phone. And I'm
Right.
sure other people that are introverted would feel that way. They'd be like, well, I don't want to, that's not going to work. Like it wouldn't work on me, so to speak.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
would
maybe
never.
not, but like if like say there was 8 of us calling, one of them's you, the other 7 are like me, that seller's not gonna maybe not connect with one of us. So like when you get on the phone with them, there could be like an instant connection, right? And now you've been able to help them. Otherwise, they're gonna get somebody like us that's gonna annoy them.
Well, I do think it is important to match, and I do think that
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that are like, that would be, you know, that would be way too much. Like, I don't want someone, some people want someone that feels like they're always selling that, you know,
Yeah.
they feel like that shows negotiation and
Right.
that they're
Exactly.
successful. And some people are just like, I don't want that type of person. I don't want to feel like you don't need to sell to me anymore.
Right.
Like you
Like
know,
we're done.
we're
Yes, I
done.
agree.
You know,
Yes.
and there's a lack of trust. I think if that's not your type of personality, a lot of people can be quite skeptical
Yeah.
of a very salesy personality. So I think there is, yeah, I think there is room in it. There's just different tactics of ways
Mhm.
of approaching them. And I don't think it's cold calling.
I
I
wonder
really,
too if you're like, okay, so if
or
you're
how I would refer to cold calling. It's
right,
not,
I get it. If you're like, okay, so as an introvert, if you want to speak to your people and get leads, like maybe there's like a way, like what do some of your friends ask you about real estate that are also introverts? And maybe like answering those questions like over
well, yeah,
video, stuff like that.
exactly. I think, yeah, I think that's a great thing because I think most people that are looking for non-salesy sales people, so to speak,
Yes.
they're looking for data and they want
Yes.
to know that you know what you're talking about and you won't, excuse my language, bullshit them around.
Correct.
They want to get a straight answer. They want to know if if you know, is this price too high? Yes or no? And
Right.
why? Give me the facts.
Right.
So if you're not going to be making the, you know, let's say the bulk of the call, because maybe that's not what you want to do. You're not just calling 30 people a day.
Right.
You have to make the conversations you have more knowledgeable and more educated.
Exactly. And if you're like on, like, let's say social media is a way that you do it, and you're on there and you see somebody ask a question, you could like make a quick video answering the question, right? And be like, I sent you a video message to
It's
answer.
very personal. Yeah.
Yes. And then you're on the video and you can use that for other things, but you're like, and you're demonstrating that you're similar to them. You're maybe a little bit more reserved, you're answering their question, like you said, you're giving them information, things like that, and that could lead them to
I
hiring you.
think it also shows people that unlike someone that is got more, it also shows that you know just as much
Yeah.
as anyone else, maybe more.
Yeah.
And exactly that you are trying to reach them in a different
Yes.
way.
In a different, yeah. I think you're right. I mean, that makes me think of like sometimes when people are quiet, that's mistaken for not knowing, which is a lot of
Not the
times not
case.
the case.
Most, yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
Well, it's funny the perceptions we all have, maybe even based on our own kind of fears and insecurities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And or our own inclinations. And
Yes.
so you're like, well, why haven't they answered? Well, maybe they're thinking about the correct answer.
Yeah.
And I just think that, yeah, I think some people aren't just going to answer it, they're going to make sure it's the correct answer. And
Right.
it's a thought through answer.
Right.
And I would say I find some of the, you know, some of the people that I really aspire to, in my office that are, I wouldn't say they're exactly shy, but they're quiet. They're not quiet even. They speak when they have something to say.
Not if they're not going to add value to the conversation. Like if the question has already been answered, they're not just going to like
They
say
won't
it
say anything.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas some of us, we're talkers. We like to talk. We don't care what we're saying.
And it's funny, I'm a talker. I don't sell that way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting.
And that's, I guess, why when you asked, am I an introvert and extrovert, I was kind of struggling this because I enjoy more of the introvert's path to sales versus the extrovert, but I obviously say a lot.
Right. Right. You're not afraid to talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not succinct in any way, unfortunately. But I do find that what has worked for introverts, I like. And I think it's incredibly successful, and I think it's incredibly powerful because it tends to be more strategic
Yeah.
than just a numbers game,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
also work. No offense to anyone that's doing a numbers game. Numbers game works.
Right.
Um,
It is better though if you match like the style with your personality. And I mean that's the whole point of the podcast, right? It's like we want people to know there's a lot of ways to do business and you have to find out what's going to work for you. For sure.
And I think that's the scariest thing, especially when when you start this, because this is what I was kind of thinking about when we were talking about this. As I mentioned, you're told these are the three things you have to do, but what if they don't fit you? What
Right.
if you do it and you're like, I hate every moment
Right.
of this?
Exactly.
And maybe I can do it, but it's not how I want to do business. That doesn't mean just because of course, even an introvert can cold call. It just may not be as successful or as effective as someone that doesn't care and
Yeah.
enjoys the thrill of who am I going to get on the phone.
Right.
But you can be just as successful, if not more successful. You just have to find, as you said, a different way.
The way to do it.
And well, exactly. And there's just so many different ways. And I think it's just a softer network. Softer networking.
Yeah.
Because I was actually thinking about all these different kind of ways of,
Okay.
between even your vendors and your website and your marketing. You can focus on these softer ways to get in front of people and get your name across, especially in this market where, granted, I'm in Florida, so everyone's like 55 and older. So, I mean, that's not true, but it's an older.
Everyone's a realtor also.
And everyone's exactly. So you have to be a bit creative. No one's going to say to you, wow, you're a realtor. I've never met anyone who's a realtor.
Right.
But you do have an older market, but even still, people are looking more for video and Instagram and Twitter and all these newer ways that don't involve you picking up the phone. You still have to be brave and video yourself and do these other things. But I don't necessarily always get an immediate response like, hi, Deb, yes, and a question, but I'll get an email like 2 weeks later, like, oh, I'm looking to buy now, or this, and I saw it.
Yeah.
And I find that's a great way if you're someone who maybe like doesn't want to just be knocking on people's door at random and saying, hi, nice to meet you. I'm sure you've never met a realtor before. Great news. I'm one, so.
Exactly. No, that makes sense. I think it is, you still have to get out there. It's still a contact sport, but there's a lot of ways to get out there that can work. And if you're an extreme introvert, just playing on that and target market other, buyers.
I would go after extreme introverts. I would go on all these online clubs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, is face-to-face better? Well, for most people, yes. But you know what? Maybe no one's getting in front of some of those people.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
They're not responding like in the same way because they don't feel comfortable or whatever.
Because they don't like, there are people that just do not want to be in front of people. So you do virtual tours and you do everything online.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know if anyone's targeting those people that, so.
Hey, Debra, you found your niche.
Yeah. Online gaming or something.
Exactly. Well, I really appreciate you being on. I think it's really thought-provoking because I think so many, I agree with you. There's like this idea, this image of what we think a realtor is, and then we're trying to like fit into that box, which is not, I mean, that's not going to work.
I just think it's very scary and daunting for someone that isn't comfortable just pounding the phones and knocking on strangers' doors. And that's a big ask for, probably 50% of the population.
Right. That's crazy. Yeah, no, I get it. Well, if people do have a referral for you in Delray Beach, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Call me, email me, text, really any way. Do you want me to give my contact details?
Yeah,
or?
that's it.
So my email is Debra, DEBRA.HAYM@gmail.com. And my phone number is 561-699-3319. And if you have any questions about anything, really anyone. I'm always happy to answer it. It may not be the fastest answer or the most succinct answer, but I will absolutely, if I can help, I will.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being on, Deborah. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much for having me.
Have a good one.